Our first guest tonight is the new defensive tackles coach at BYU. He's got a lot of history with the Cougars. He played 8 seasons with the New York Jets. Zach Wilson's on the Jets. His parents were immigrants from Tonga. BYU head coach Kalani Sitake was born in Tonga. His wife's maiden name's Kaufusi, and there are 7 Kaufusis that have played at BYU while other Kaufusis coached here. So it's only fitting that he comes out of retirement to coach at BYU. It's a pleasure to welcome Sione Po'uha to the Wise Guys. Welcome.
I love it. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Tell us about what Bula is. Let's just get right
let's get right to it. What is it?
Bula.
How did you create it? What is it?
Well, Bula originated around about 2008 and actually takes root in a kava drink that originates from the South Pacific. And so just to make it a little bit more simpler and easier to get to, I just thought, hey, let's try to develop this. And called my agent. He had a buddy who'd worked for Pepsi for a long time, called him and just asked him the process. And he kind of mentored me through it and kind of took that all the way to about 2012.
So you've created your own beverage.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And how can people buy it?
Well, it's no longer in production anymore, but at the moment we were in Smith's, we were at Mavericks, we were at C-stores and gone from Utah to Arizona to Nevada, California, even all the way back to the island of Tonga. And so we got pretty widespread, but after playing, it was kind of just, let's kind of
You retired the project?
Yeah.
Dave thinks he invented Diet Dr. Pepper. He thinks he invented that.
Not the diet, the real stuff.
Oh, that's right. He won't drink the diet.
Okay.
No, Blaine likes the diet.
I drink the diet.
Would we like Bula?
I think you would. Yeah, I think you'd enjoy it. It tastes a little bit like Diet Dr. Pepper, a little bit.
Oh, we might.
Really?
We might have to try.
We have to track some down.
I haven't tried the kava.
It's got to be on Google somewhere, right?
Yeah. Somebody's probably vintaging it somewhere.
When I heard that Katie was part of the Kaufusi clan, that's a family that our family's really, really close with.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering the connection. How is she related to all the Kaufusis that everybody knows around here?
Including the mayor of Provo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay.
Including Michelle.
So Michelle's husband, Steve, his dad, his name is Betelo, and my father-in-law, Isi Kaufusi, so they're first cousins.
Okay.
So their dads are brothers. They all come from a little village called Koloa in Vavau in Tonga. So if you know all the people from there, they're related, and so that's how the Kaufusi clan is put together. And so that's how my wife is related to the Kaufusis that play.
That's
here.
a little better than the story of Vi Sikahema tells that everyone's his nephew.
Right.
Yeah.
Like every single.
We call him on it sometimes. We're like, okay, Vi, how is Sione your nephew? He's like, well, it's just too complicated. We're like, Vi, you're not the uncle of everybody from Tonga.
When Jay Hill was named the defensive coordinator, he calls you up.
Yeah.
You answer the phone, and when you answer the phone, you are a retired football coach. When you hung up the phone, were you still retired? How'd that conversation go?
Yeah, I take it into consideration, right? So we were going out to St. George, and I knew that there were a couple people who were applying to be the defensive coordinator at BYU, and so someone gave me a call and said, hey, what are you thinking? And Jay was one of those guys, and so I didn't really think too much about it. So my family and I went for a quick staycation in St. George, and Jay called, and he was asking where my head was at, and I just really kind of just felt his energy, right? And so Jay obviously had some great history with him. He was a GA while I was up there as well, and just kind of like revealing what he was thinking, his vision. Yeah. And I just got caught up in it, and it's been a great thing ever since.
How did when you hung up and you're caught up in it now, how did you explain that to your wife?
So my wife was on the phone call as well.
Oh, so Jay said, I need to talk to you and Katie.
Yeah.
Smart man.
That's a smart man, right?
So both of us were in the room, and, he just talked to us about what he thought, his vision, and, paired with what Kalani had, what his vision was. And so, I mean, there was just a bunch of energy about it, and I attached to it, and it's something I took a lot of interest in. And so my wife and I were just talking, as we always do, it's always a family decision. So we brought the kids in, and said, hey, I'm thinking about going to coaching. And they were like, oh, Dad, you're going to leave? And I was like, well, this is the place where it's going to be. And so things just started to unravel and started to happen after that. And now we're here.
So the kids grew up on Utah football, obviously. What do they think about that? Are they like, whoa, wait, we're going to BYU now? Jay has history. Jay grew up in a BYU family, which he never revealed until he was long gone from Utah. But he grew up in Lehigh, and his folks were BYU folks, and so this was just like a coming home for him. But you went to Utah and then went on to the pros. What was that like for the family?
Well, for our kids, I mean, obviously they've grown up as Utah. So my wife and I got married. We had our 2 oldest boys at the University of Utah.
Yeah.
And so they've always seen dad, wearing the drum and feather. So kind of everything was always Utah entrenched, right? And so after, years playing, then we came back and getting this phone call, I asked my kids, but I think they kind of saw past, because they kind of saw like, wow, dad kind of has a little bit of energy. Like there's something a little bit different about his aura, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I want to be a part of this, right? I want to be able to contribute as much as I can. And so with our family kind of took a vote. We've gone through this process before when you're coming from Navy to University of Utah when I coached at Navy. So we brought the family together, got on the bed, and we're like, hey, here's the situation. What do you guys think? And so all our kids were like, so everybody closes their eyes and we say, okay, everybody's going to vote, right? From 1 to 10, like, where are you at? Where are you at with this decision? And everybody voted a 10 out of 10.
Oh, that's good.
That's awesome.
Now, here's the other thing is that we called our son, who's on a mission in Birmingham, Alabama, on a Monday, and we told him about it, and he was like, wow. That's a change of events, right?
He was a little more surprised.
Yeah. And so he says, just trying to really absorb all of it, right? And then he calls the following week, and so we just, we got his. He wasn't a 10, he was 1,000. He was like, Dad, I just love the way you feel. I like your aura. I just like the energy. I like your excitement. And so that's what kind of sold everything. And so we're all in.
That's awesome. Now, you mentioned Navy, and you coached with 2 dear friends of mine. So you coached with Kenny Niumatalolo, who I've known for years. His son Va'a played here. We got to know Va'a. What a great human being. Va'a is really good friends with our son Gavin that you coach with now. And so you had a stint there, and then you were up at Utah with Kyle Whittingham, who was my roommate. We just lived right down over here.
Don't disclose the location.
That's right. Thank you, Coach.
We won't tell, because
sometimes we get pretty loose.
Well, I have to tell you, Nancy still lives there. Drives around the neighborhood in a golf cart, and we see her. We love her. She almost prevented Brenda from marrying me because she told her she should. What are you doing, committing to one guy? You're too young. I was like, you're killing me here. But I'm interested to know what you took from each, because 2 tremendous coaches, and Kenny and Kyle. What did you learn from your experiences with those guys that will help you now as you start a new chapter?
Yeah. First and foremost, just great legends, right? Those 2 names are going to go down in history as legends in coaching football. And so it definitely was an honor for me and a blessing for me to coach under both of them. The number one thing that the core denominator that I can learn from both of them is being very authentic to who you are and your methods and how you deliver that, and owning your vision, owning your values, and being able to develop that through the culture that you have. And so both of them in their own right have been able to do that, really identify, hey, this is our vision, this is what we believe in, these are our values, and this is how we practice them. And so being very authentic, very real, very genuine, you feel that from them. And that's why they produce the way they produce. And so being authentic to who you are, understanding what your values are, having clarity and being able to deliver that is something I learned from both of them very well.
Sione Po'uha is the BYU defensive tackles coach, making his debut on the Wise Guys. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and wiseguys.com all around the world. When you communicate with defensive linemen, is it different than the other players? What is the key to their development in the trench?
Well, I think...
Except for kickers, because we know they're good. But we're talking about regular players, okay? Regular players.
Yeah, it's just what I've talked about with Ken and Kyle, right? Is really having a culture in that room that will that will feed the behaviors that you want, right? The type of mindsets, the type of attitude, the approach to the game. And so, in our defensive room, we definitely have a vision. Champions, alpha, have that type of mentality, and then have the values that support that. And then every single day, just practice that every single day, right? So for us, our values are just being tough, being physical, and being skilled. And so we go every single day. We just try to practice what we preach, what our culture is, and then hopefully that shows up in who they are, and then we're able to perform that way.
So spring practice starts here next week. How do you feel about that group up front that you have, and what are some of the key things that you feel you need to work on during spring ball to get this group ready to play in the Big 12 next fall?
Yeah, well, we've had 7 weeks of lifting, so we had a chance to be able to implement the culture and the mindset that they need to have. Now it's time to take it to the next level and put it with the X's and O's. Now we're starting to install defenses and starting to understand offenses and start to get into the schematics of things. And so now just piecing all those together in terms of building, right? The product that you see on Saturday really is just days of just engineering and refining and engineering and refining. And so spring ball just gives us another opportunity to throw in that element of X's and Y's going against offense and defense and develop in that way. So that we're in that phase right now.
As for the schematics to stopping the run, and stopping the run was a big problem last year, where does it start? Where does a good run defense start?
Being assignment sound. Right? Being assignment sound, understanding where your fits, what your responsibilities are, and being able to execute the right technique to be able to take care of your job. So with our guys, we give them an assignment and we give them an alignment, an assignment, and a technique to be able to do it. And so you got to be meticulous in being able to do that. Okay, where do I line up? What am I responsible for? And how do you want me to take care of it? And so as a coach, what we got to do is just really just sharpen up on that. So being very sound in terms of your assignment, alignment, and technique.
So but what about big, mean, and nasty? Do you have to be
that
those
comes
three?
into it too, right?
Yeah, that's kind of the motor behind the vehicle, right? You got to have all those together. And so for us, again, like I said, you got to be tough, and that's where the meanness comes in. Now, tough for us is a little bit different on defensive front. We're really just talking about performance over the weather that comes with a football game, whether you're playing in Texas in 110-degree weather, or you're playing here in the winter, or you're playing third and short. And so toughness really is being able to be elite at the different weathers that you have in football. And so that's where the toughness comes in. And so it doesn't matter if it's 1st and 10 on the first drive or we're in the third overtime game, right? You should be able to perform that. But that happens in January. And so spring ball is a good time to be able to say, okay, here's the next phase where we can develop that toughness.
And Sione and I were talking before he came on, and we have a common friend, one of my old teammates that he met when he was with the Jets, Bart Oates.
Yeah.
And Bart started at center for the Giants and won a Super Bowl there. He's a Pro Bowler. He goes to the Niners. He was Super Bowl there, and he's a Pro Bowler with the Niners. So a great legendary player. Now he's with the NFL Players Association. But when you talk about meanness and toughness, anybody that has met Bart Oates goes, no, that guy couldn't have been, like, he's the nicest guy in the world, right? He and Michelle are the nicest people in the world. He's just so mild-mannered. But that guy just stepped off that white line onto the inside of that white line.
Once that mouthpiece went in.
And he was nuts, right? He would dominate people and just with a smile on his face, just be running people into the ground. And you're thinking, wow, he's actually got a screw loose and he's really nasty. Is that something that somebody's just born with, or can you teach that to these D linemen to be good guys off the field, but to be able to play with emotion and passion on the field? Somebody like Bart, you're just like, man, that dude has a gift, right?
Yeah. Well, I think it's just a really sharp knife, right? You've been able to really just get really good at your craft, and then when you get out there, that's what it looks like. But to them, it's a work of art, right? It's a way that they perform. It's a way that they execute their plays. And so for us, it looks really violent, right? For Bart Oates and for great players who are able to do that, for them, it's their masterpiece. It's their profession. It's how they do things. For us, we see a lot of guys colliding, right? But for defensive linemen, we see guys colliding. They're getting a half a shade. Their hands are in the right place. Their feet's following them. Their frame is all together. So for them, it's really melodic, if that makes sense. There's really a method and a flow to it.
We had Kelly K-pop on, Kelly Papinga.
Yeah.
Was it last week or the week before? I think the week before.
I think so.
And we were talking scheme with him, and we said, what differences will people see? He talked about, and I want you to explain this for the interior lineman a little more, that in the system they've run in the last couple of years, there was more where the D-line would have to come off and try to be violent, but control the offensive player and then read and flow. And he mentioned that Jay's philosophy is a little more, hey, you got one gap, get upfield to the gap and create havoc. What does that mean to people that are listening and watching us tonight?
Yeah, so a lot of people think that we just kind of collide. When we talk about like gap integrity, make sure we get our fits. Now, Rex Ryan wouldn't like me saying fits because he doesn't really like
he doesn't
fits,
use that word.
He doesn't use that word. So we have different assignments, right? And so for us, we have 1.5 assignments. And so we're assigned a gap, but we're also assigned kind of like an offensive lineman. We've got some guys in the back we got to protect. And so we're not only taking a gap, but we got to make sure that we disrupt the blocking combinations that happened. So we're not just in there hey, we're just going to fly straight, because what happens is then the offensive lineman will come back and go to the linebacker. And so you get a hat for hat. Anytime offense gets a hat for hat, it's a win. So for us, it's disrupting the blocking combination and at the same time keeping our gap integrity.
Kyle's defenses over the years, and Morgan runs the defense, but I'm still calling it Kyle's defense, right?
Yeah.
And Kalani's when he was there. the inside backers make a bazillion tackles. This is the reason why, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't get offensive linemen comboing down to them. They're too engaged with the block eaters up front, and then those backers can flow freely and quickly to the ball. Is that the concept?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the concept. With the linebackers, what they read, they attack what they read, right? And so they've done so much game studying. Enna does a great job. Kyle, being a linebacker himself, understands that, hey, once you read, go and hit it, right? So it's a combination of my ability to read it, but also my guys up front giving me the time to read it. And then when I read it, just fire. Right? Yeah. If that makes sense. And so that's what makes it stout.
With Kalani, the marching orders have been get bigger, stronger, faster, because you're going into a league that's bigger, stronger,
Absolutely.
faster. So when you recruit a kid to BYU, where do you start?
There's a lot of different factors that go into recruitability of someone, right? You can look at the measurables, you look at the size, and
right.
those are obvious factors. But you also look at at like kind of the footprint. What kind of footprint do they have with us? What kind of connections? And so we get those players. So once we find that fit, then we start the recruiting process, right? So a lot of it has to go with evaluations, and wish there was a cookie cutter way, right? But everybody's kind of cut differently. Everybody's recruited differently. Everybody responds differently to different things. And so that's very important for us to be able to go know who the player is, know who the high school is, so then we can know what the approach is to be able to best recruit them.
So we've heard you're a great recruiter. So a kid gets to you, and he might be on the fence, and you're going to talk to him about why he should play at BYU. And you've only been at BYU for a few months.
Yeah.
But you know the culture and all of that stuff.
Absolutely.
So how do you do it?
You find out what's important to the person, right? And you got to do a lot of listening. And so you sit down there, you got to realize what's important to the person. Because sometimes as an older person, you think we do know kind of insight to the future, but only they know what they like. And so if you take in recruiting, as much as we give out, right, we just have to take in as well. Like take in as much information, know what they like, know what makes them tick, know what interests them, and be able to formulate all the great resources we have here at BYU to say, hey, we've got the exact fit for you. And I'm going to set it up for you. Okay, you're in business. Okay, here it is. You want to go into this department? Here it is, right? And so it's really just listening to what they want, what the parents want, what their needs, solve their problems. Now we're kind of getting into business ethics, right? Yeah. Find the problem, solve it for them, give them the solution, and say, hey, I'll be right here to help support you.
Yeah,
sign me up.
Yeah, I'm in. Sione Po'uha is on the Wise Guys with Dave and I tonight. We're so glad to have him here. He played for the Jets between 2005 and 2012 after being selected in the third round of the 2005 NFL draft. So now we're going to take you back in time. 2008, you bring down New England's Matt Castle for your first NFL sack. Do you remember that play? What happened?
Actually, I don't remember that play.
That's your first
Come on,
sack?
that's the first one.
I think I was just happy to get off the field, to tell you the truth, man. Yeah, but those are memorable moments. When you get those sacks, I'm sure I have the ball up in my office, kind of hanging in there. Mm-hmm. But when you get a sack with those guys, and when you get a sack period from a defensive tackle, right? Especially in my position, because I was a zero, so two gapper, right? It's always one for celebration for sure.
When I talk about block eater, he says he's a 0-2 gapper. I mentioned block eater, like that. His job was to just eat up blocks and steamroll people back. That's not an easy job.
So the first sack is kind of in the gray area of remembering. Let's go to 2011, a little more recent. You tackle Kansas City Jackie Battle in the end zone for a safety.
Yeah.
So what was the feeling you had bringing a guy down in the end zone?
Oh, yeah, I knew the play. I knew what the play was going to be. It was going to be like a direct run, and so I already knew the blocking scheme. And so, I just
is that just from the scout process?
Just scouting, just from studying film. I knew what the block. I knew when they were backed up, what their number one run was going to be.
So they give him the ball, and you're going.
Yeah, they gave him the ball, and as soon as I knocked back the center, I was like, "Oh, there he is! Right, let's just go ahead and take him down." I thought I had a good celebration. I just waved at the crowd. I remember my nephew was there. And my wife and kids were there, and so
hey, that's 2 points.
Some good memorable points. Yeah.
Hey, when you know the scout, and you know what you're doing out there with confidence, you make plays. We were talking to Max Tooley about his pick six in the bowl.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, as soon as they went to this formation, and when the guy motioned away, I thought, this is this play. And he says, so as soon as the quarterback raised his arm, I just broke on it and took it for 6. And we just thought, preparation, right?
Yeah,
Preparation gets it done.
Yeah.
Kyle Van Noy is going to be on the show next week.
Awesome.
There's another guy with instinct
Oh my
and
goodness!
preparation.
And preparation.
Yes.
Found a way to be wherever the ball
Yep,
is.
absolutely.
For a long, long time.
I always say you can never outperform your preparation. So make sure that's up there.
That's good. That is good advice. You can never outperform your preparation. Well, you finished in the NFL with 263 tackles, 4.5 sacks. Was there a specific play that you remember the most?
Not really.
Now you were in two games where if you won those games, you're going to the Super Bowl.
Yes, I do remember. Right. So Ben Roethlisberger, right? He has to score first. He has to get a first down, right, in order to finish the game, eat the clock up. If not, we're going to get the ball. Mark Sanchez and the team marches it down to be able to win it for us. And we were just rolling. I mean, we had Santonio Holmes, Jeremy Cotchery.
Good team.
Really good team. And so I just remember wrapping around, and I was running after Ben as fast as I can. And I pushed him out of bounds, and he just lobbed it and then ended up getting it to the tight end for a first down.
Oh.
And I looked up and I said, wow. That's one for the books, man.
Was he as hard to bring down as he looks like on TV?
Yeah, that's
Just
a
that
big guy.
big.
Yeah.
He's a large human being for that position,
that
right?
can move as well. So
Yeah, he was. Yeah, especially in his younger years, he could.
Yes.
For the size, he was crazy skilled.
And you served your mission to Pittsburgh, so
Yep.
it all comes full circle.
It all
You're trying to
comes
get
full circle.
the Steelers out of the Super Bowl. One thing you've managed to do is balance your faith with football for all of these years, even now as you serve in the stake presidency in Draper.
Yep.
How have you managed to do that?
So I don't think it's a balancing act. I think it's a centering act,
Yeah.
right? You put your faith at the center, and then everything kind of revolves in it. And so things either fall in or fall out that are supposed to happen to you. So if and I've been asked that question about, how do you balance it with
Right.
what you're doing? And I think the most appropriate word would be that more centering it. How can you center your faith, make that the center of your life so that all the decisions and all the priorities around in your life fall into that faith of those values that you have faith in. And so
Did NFL locker rooms make it harder, or was just not a big deal?
And I think that's just really in the movies. When you're in the NFL and you're in those locker rooms, you got a lot of mature men in there, right? You got fathers as well, and everybody knows that, hey, we're there to feed our families. And so I know the movies and stuff might have a lot of flair and stuff going into it, but there's a lot of great men in there, and there's great diversity in those NFL locker rooms, and everybody appreciates everyone, everybody respects everyone, because everybody can learn and have value from each and every person in that locker room.
When you were with the Jets over that time, I'm assuming guys knew that you were a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It sounds like they respected that, but people knew, right?
Yeah.
So
Did you have any fun reactions?
Yeah, well, they were like, wow, we got a 24-year-old 88th draft pick. What is this guy going to do for us? And I just said, there's probably some values that I learned on a mission really early on that I could probably, help out with the team. And so, just being an older guy and having kids that were already in elementary and stuff. So, that was kind of fun. But again, all the locker rooms are so diverse. I mean, you're dealing with veterans that have been there for 12 years. I mean, I went in there, Curtis Martin's in there, Kevin Mawai. I mean, you've got some wise heads, and then you've got some younger guys, and so everybody just learns to really just appreciate and support each other.
We have quite a few people that live back in the Metro New York area. Where did you guys live when you were with the Jets?
So we lived, we were first at Hofstra. Okay, I got drafted by Herm Edwards, and so we practiced at Hofstra. Home of Wayne Corbett, and all that. And so, Ty Pennington. And so after that, then we moved over to Florham Park. That's when we moved over to Jersey.
Yeah.
So I played at the old Giants Stadium and then now at the Meadowlands. And so I was part of that transition that took place.
Was Vi a stake president back there in your area
I think
at the
so,
time?
yeah, because he was in Philadelphia, and so that was just a train ride away.
Yeah, 90 minutes away, really.
It wasn't too far away, and so going from Herm Edwards to Eric Mangini to Rex Ryan, and kind of going through all, it was really fun to have all those experiences.
Yeah, what a
Sione
great
Po'uha is on the Wise Guys tonight. Former state champion at East High School in Salt Lake City. Leopards won it in 1996, which presents this question. BYU went 14-1. They're ranked number 5 in the country that year. So why didn't you go to BYU?
I didn't get recruited by BYU.
Really?
Yeah.
mistake.
Yeah.
Obviously, right? Obviously.
What, did it tick you off, or were you just, you know what, East is right next door to the U, and that's what I'm going to do?
Coach Ron McBride, a great recruiter, a great friend,
Yeah.
just a great connector with people, and so I had developed a great relationship with it. But I never got recruited by BYU. My best friend is Jason Kaufusi,
Yeah.
brother of, and so both of us went to East High School, and so we didn't really get anything.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Sometimes
anything
we
at all.
just miss down here.
Yeah, you do miss, right? Sometimes you miss. You just don't know. Or you.
But I
all of a
love
sudden
I
you go
love the
like, hey,
I love that 2022 recruitment for sure. Yeah, I'm glad we're here.
That seemed to work out.
Yeah,
I'm
for
glad
sure.
someone called you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and Ronnie Mack, like we've had some great interactions with Ron over the years. Like when he and Lavelle were in the driver's seats, the rivalry had a tone to it that was really fun.
Yeah.
Those two were dear friends.
Yeah.
Yes. And that kind of made it fun. And they'd rib each other and have fun
And they would
with
have
each
those.
other.
They'd have those magazines, right? Paint the town red.
Yeah,
paint the town blue,
It was a great time. And then it got kind of where it was like almost like an ugly rivalry for a while. It feels like, I wonder if it feels like this to you as well, that with Kalani and Kyle, who are also really dear friends, that the civility of the rivalry seems to, maybe not for some fans, but inside, the coaches are friends across the board, almost all the in-state schools. Do you feel like it's a little kinder and gentler outside of the fan bases with this rivalry with Kalani and Kyle at the helm?
Granted the history and the connection that everybody has and kind of like the cross coaching and this guy's been experienced here and stuff like that, still got to understand everybody's competitive.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Everybody's still competitive and everybody's still trying to win that game. And so when we get on the drawing board or we have an opportunity to be able to compete, there's still that competitor at the core of all of that happens. And amongst all the fanfare and stuff, it's really about, hey, let's compete, man. We want to compete.
Speaking of the competition, you're a freshman at Utah in 2001.
I remember this one.
You watched Gennaro Guilford make the game-winning interception in front of a sold-out Lavelle Edwards Stadium to seal the win for BYU. If someone would have told you at that moment that someday you'd be coaching with Gennaro and for BYU, you would say,
all right. I never thought in a million years.
Yeah.
Right. I never when I was, when I kind of went away from coaching, when I went away from University of Utah, I never ever thought that this would ever happen. Right. 10 months after that, Kalani would call me and all the transitions would take place and Tom Homo and the team would give me a chance to I never would have imagined. Right. Oh. I take it back to the faith part. Right. Put that at the center. Don't balance it. Put it at the center. Follow it. Follow that as a guide, and things will come into your life that things are supposed to happen. People will come in. Events will happen. You'll have great mentors and tutors like Kalani, Ken, and Kyle, and all those things will happen.
And it's fun because they had a family council on the bed.
Yeah.
Right. Which is keep it at the center and have a family council, and the good things were happening. You were back in 2003. Played a role in the lowest scoring game in stadium history. I remember that game. I worked that game. 3-0. And the Utes win in a snowstorm. What was that like out? And that was a miserable day. But
yeah, that was right. And so it was really snowy. I know Paris Warren got really close to scoring a touchdown, then he slipped. But it's 3-0. And that game is always a great game, right? Especially when it's at November. Right, the last game.
And it means something.
Yeah, and it means something. And it's always great to be able to have that. And when you could have competition like that, it's all the more for the fans. But, that was a cold game.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah.
And it was colder for BYU fans because when you're ahead, it's not as cold. We've learned that in many broadcasts over the years. Where it's like weather's miserable, but it's a little worse for the team that's behind.
Yes.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
Let's do 5 questions. We'll get you out the door. Kalen Hall's standing by, and we're excited to visit with him.
Yeah, we always do the 5 questions. You don't even think about them. You just answer them quick.
All right, whatever comes up.
So this is how people get to know you. Although I feel like we got to know you really well.
Okay.
By having you here for the last 30 minutes. Favorite sports movie?
Rudy.
Who just last week said Rudy?
It's a lot of Rudies.
Who was on last week? Derwin.
I think Derwin
Gray said Rudy too. So, favorite singer or band?
Ooh. Fiji, the artist.
Okay, now this is what I don't know. Fiji. What kind of music is it?
So it's like island reggae, and he's one of the legends that kind of uprooted that.
After he gets hopped up on Bula, he's able to play his.
And Bula is a Fijian word.
Interesting. So we were over in Oahu a couple weeks ago, and I decided I wanted to listen to more island music. So I put on Common Kings, and then the kids are like, Dad, Common Kings have a really cool island vibe, but they're from SoCal. if you want to listen to somebody from the islands, put on Jack Johnson. I'm like, what?
Yeah, Jack
And
Johnson.
Jack Johnson's from the North Shore. I'm like,
and
okay.
he's Jack Damuni's buddy, man.
Yeah, there we go. So
I'd go on that one. I'd go double, right? So I'd go Fiji, and then another Islander guy would be Josh Sitofi. So
Okay, Josh Sitofi. Okay, I'm gonna try both.
Okay.
Favorite breakfast cereal?
Ooh, Rice Krispies chocolate.
Chocolate Rice Krispies.
See now,
Nice.
when you just went Rice Krispies, I was a little disappointed. But when you added the chocolate, I'm all in. So
Because then you have to dump so much sugar on it if you're eating them
Yeah.
the
straight.
regular Rice Krispies takes like 6 teaspoons of sugar to make them okay. So, but the chocolate, you're all good.
Okay.
Favorite Kalani Sitake moment?
Favorite Kalani Sitake moment. Okay, so here it is. So I think it was like 2007, 2008. It was that Kansas City game. We come back and it's the off season, right? I walk into Kalani's office and he goes, "One of these days I'm gonna get a chance to hire you."
Really?
Is that right?
Yeah.
And you said at the time,
And I was like, "Oh yeah. You know,
of course,
coach,
yeah.
You know, and I'm still playing. He's still coaching up there at Utah.
Yeah.
And I still remember that comment. And I was like, okay, it's and then when 2015 happened and things happened, I was like, okay, maybe. And then fate just happens.
so when you walked in the door, having accepted the job at the football office, did he go, see?
Did he
I told
remind you, or did you remind him of that moment?
I haven't even reminded him. This will
You
probably
got to
be the first
remind
time.
him. Yeah, you got to remind him.
I'm sure
So-
he's had a lot of conversations like that before.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Do you have a favorite quote? We'll end with that. A favorite quote?
From Kalani. There was a quote that he gave at the bowl game. I think it was during media day, talking about Christ being the center and what we represent, and I love that. And it kind of goes back to the faith thing, right?
Right.
And him being the foundation, and I just love the ability to be able to share the things that you're faithful about, right? Just because you're faithful about it, not as a proclamation to say, hey, everybody should be like, hey, this is what makes me tick. Right. And so having him do that. And those are some of the things that I get excited about, right, as they call it. So
And it can be right out there where you're coaching now, which is
Absolutely.
really neat.
Yeah.
And it's embraced and expected at BYU, which is a really neat culture and environment to be part of. And Kalani's made it that way. Really cool. I liked Sione's. It's a philosophy that you can never outperform your preparation.
Yeah.
That's something to remember too. I'm gonna remember that as well. That's a great. Keep your faith at the center of everything that you do. Don't try to balance it. And then when it comes to playing football, you can never outperform your preparation. That's a couple of great learnings for us today.
thank you.
Plus, it's nice to meet a nice warrior.
Hey, okay.
Because you have to be a warrior at tackle in the NFL.
Yeah,
Right? You just have to be.
Yeah.
And yet, how can you be so nice at the same time?
I don't know. I guess it just works itself out, man.
Yeah, there you go. Well, because he can take out all his aggression on the field, and if you play that many years in the NFL, you can just leave it all, and then you can just be a normal person.
Well, kind of like
So-
like I said before, from us it looks like aggression, right? But to the person, it's a martial art. It's an art, right? How they kind of go through it. Like we'll watch boxing, we'll say, oh, Mike Tyson's so, but dude, he's like really philosophical. He's got his timing right.
There's a plan.
So,
Yeah.
He has a plan, and the way they just carry it out, just like a martial artist.
beautiful.
It's great to have you here. Welcome
you.
back,
I
or
appreciate
welcome
it.
to Provo.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We
And-
love being here.
Well, welcome
Good.
to where you
Good.
should have been in. What year did you graduate from high school?
1996.
1996, 97.
96. So that's where you should have been back then. Someone made a mistake, but all mistakes come around to where they're supposed to be, and now you're where you're supposed to be.
Granted, everything happens for a reason. We're
right.
glad to be here.
And
for
that
sure.
preparation, the path you took, prepared you to have a tremendous impact here. We're excited for
I'm
you.
looking forward to it.
We'll
Thanks
see you
so
at
much,
practice.
Sione.
Thanks, Coach.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Great to have you.